It's snowing, I love it when it snows. Oh, hello. I always look forward to the first snowfall of the year. Ever since I was a little girl, I would go outside and stick out my tongue and catch the very first snowflake on it. I love the cool, fresh taste and the way it melts in your mouth. My dog Spheri, he does it with me too, although his tongue is sticking out all the time anyway, and he's always catching things on it like dandelions and butterflies and the Pringles pizza-flavored potato chips that I throw at him like little frisbees. Goodness gracious, that dog loves his pizza-flavored Pringles. Last year, something strange happened during the first snowfall. I went outside, stuck out my tongue, caught a snowflake, and it tasted just like a banana split. I couldn't believe it. So I tasted another snowflake, and that one tasted like chocolate chip cookie dough. Another one tasted like a Heath bar. Every snowflake had a different flavor. Pistachio, cheesecake brownie, s'mores, vanilla caramel fudge, and chocolate macadamia nut. Oh, it was the best snowstorm ever. When I ran in the house to get a bucket, I saw the news on TV. Ben and Jerry's private jet had run low on fuel and had to dump its cargo over my town to get to the airport. It was a Ben and Jerry's blizzard. When I went back outside, I got bonked on the head with a huge pile of chunky monkey. Later, when I woke up, I built a Ben and Jerry's ice cream snowman. I ate a little bit of him every day for a month until he became a snow boy, a snow baby, and finally a snow nothing. Now, this is a lovely story about a lonely snowman. It's Hans Christian Andersen's The Snowman. "It is so delightfully cold," said the snowman, "that it makes my whole body crackle. This is just the kind of wind to blow life into one. How that great red thing up there is staring at me." He meant the sun, who was just setting. "It shall not make me wink. I shall manage to keep the pieces." He had 2 triangular pieces of tile in his head instead of eyes, and his mouth was made of an old broken rake and was, of course, furnished with teeth. He had been brought into existence amidst the joyous shouts of boys, the jingling of sleigh bells, and the slashing of whips. The sun went down, and the full moon rose, large, round, and clear, shining in the deep blue. "Well, there it comes again, from the other side," said the snowman, who thought that the sun was showing himself once more. "Ah, I have cured him of staring, though. Now he may hang up there and shine, that I may see myself. If I only knew how to manage to move away from this place. I should so like to move if I could. I would slide along on the ice, as I've seen the boys do, but I don't understand how. I don't even know how to run." "Away! Away!" barked the old yard dog. His voice was quite hoarse, and he could not pronounce bow wow properly. He had once been an indoor dog and lay by the fire all day, and he had been hoarse ever since. "The sun will make you run someday. I saw it last winter. Make your father run, and his father before him. Away! Away! They all have to go." "I don't understand you, friend," said the snowman. "Is that thing in the sky to teach me to run? I saw it running itself a little while ago, and now it has come creeping up from the other side." "You know nothing at all," replied the yard dog. "But then you've only lately been patched up. What you see in the sky is the moon, and the one before it was the sun. It will come again tomorrow and most likely teach you to run down into the ditch by the well, for I think the weather is going to change. I can feel such pricks and stabs in my left leg. I'm sure there's going to be a change." "I don't understand him," said the snowman to himself, "but I have a feeling that he's talking of something very disagreeable. The one who stared so just now and whom he calls the sun is not my friend. I can feel that, too." "Away! Away!" barked the old yard dog, and then he turned around 3 times and crept into his kennel to sleep. There was really a change in the weather. Towards morning, a thick fog covered the whole country round, and a keen wind arose, so that the cold seemed to freeze one's bones. But when the sun rose high, the sight was splendid. Trees and bushes were covered with frost and looked like a forest of white coral, while on every twig glittered frozen dewdrops. Oh, the many delicate forms, concealed in summer by luxuriant foliage, were now clearly defined and looked like glittering lacework. From every twig glistened a white radiance. The birch, waving in the wind, looked full of life, like trees in summer, and its appearance was wondrously beautiful. And where the sun shone, how everything glittered and sparkled, as if diamond dust had been strewn about, while the snowy carpet of the earth appeared as if covered with diamonds, from which countless lights gleamed, whiter than even the snow itself. "This is really beautiful," said a young girl who had come into the garden with a young man, and they both stood still near the snowman and contemplated the glittering scene. "Summer could not show a more beautiful sight," she exclaimed, while her eyes sparkled. "And we can't have such a fellow as this in the summertime," replied the young man, pointing to the snowman. "He is brilliant." The girl laughed and nodded at the snowman, and then tripped away over the snow with her friend. The snow creaked and crackled beneath her foot, as if she had been treading on starch. "Who are those two?" asked the snowman of the yard dog. "You've been here longer than I have. Do you know them?" "Of course I know them," replied the yard dog. "She's stroked my back many a times, and he's given me a bone of meat. I never bite those two." "But what are they?" asked the snowman. "They're lovers," he replied. "They will go and live in the same kennel by and by, and gnaw at the same bone. Away! Away!" Are they the same kind of beings as you and I?" asked the snowman. "Well, they belong to the same master," retorted the yard dog. "Certainly people who were only born yesterday know very little. I can see that in you. I've age and experience. I know everyone here in the house, and I know there was once a time when I did not lie out here in the cold fastened to a chain. Away! Away!" "Well, the cold is delightful," said the snowman, "but do tell me, only you must not clank your chain so much, for it jars all through me when you do that." "Away! Away!" barked the yard dog. "I'll tell you. They said I was a pretty little fellow once when I used to lie in a velvet-covered chair up at the master's house and sit in the mistress's lap. They used to kiss my nose and wipe my paws with an embroidered handkerchief, and I was called Amie, dear Amie, sweet Amie. But after a while, I grew too big for them, and they sent me away to the housekeeper's room. So I came to live on the lower story. Well, you can look in there into that room from where you stand and see where I was master once, for I was indeed master to the housekeeper. It was certainly a smaller room than those upstairs, but I was more comfortable, for I was not being continually taken hold of and pulled about by the children as I had been. I received quite as good food, or even better. I had my own cushion, and there was a stove. It was the finest thing in the world at this season of the year. I used to go under the stove and lie down quite beneath it. I still dream of that stove. Away! Away! "Does a stove look beautiful?" asked the snowman. "Is it at all like me?" "Well, it's just the reverse of you," said the dog. "It's as black as a crow and has a long neck and a brass knob. It eats firewood so that fire spurts out of its mouth. We should keep on one side or under it to be comfortable. You can see it through the window from where you stand." Then the snowman looked and saw a bright polished thing with a brazen knob and fire gleaming from the lower part of it. The snowman felt quite a strange sensation come over him. It was very odd. He knew not what it meant, and he could not account for it. But there are people who are not men of snow who understand what it is. "And why did you leave her?" asked the snowman, for it seemed to him that the stove must be of the female sex. "How could you give up such a comfortable place?" "I was obliged," said the yard dog. "They turned me out of doors and chained me up here. I had bitten the youngest of the master's sons on the leg because he kicked away the bone I was gnawing. Bone for bone, I thought. But Oh, they were so angry, and from that time I've been fastened outside here on a chain and lost my bone. Don't you hear how hoarse I am? Away! Away! Well, I can't even talk anymore like other dogs. Away! Away! Oh, that's the end of it all. But the snowman was no longer listening. He was looking into the housekeeper's room on the lower story, where the stove stood on its 4 iron legs, looking about the same size as the snowman himself. What a strange crackling I feel within me, he said. Shall I ever get in there? It's an innocent wish, and innocent wishes are sure to be fulfilled. I must go in there and lean against her, even if I have to break the window. You must never go in there, said the yard dog, for if you approach the stove, you will melt away. Away! Well, I might as well go, said the snowman, for I think I'm breaking up as it is. During the whole day, the snowman stood looking in through the window, and in the twilight hour, the room became still more inviting, for from the stove came a gentle glow, not like the sun or the moon, no, only the bright light which gleams from a stove when it has been well fed. When the door of the stove was opened, the flames darted out of its mouth. This is customary with all stoves. The light of the flames fell directly on the face and the breast of the snowman with a ruddy gleam. I can endure it no longer, said he. How beautiful it looks when it stretches out its tongue. The night was long, but did not appear so to the snowman, who stood there enjoying his own reflections and crackling with the cold. In the morning, the window panes of the housekeeper's room were covered with ice. They were the most beautiful ice flowers any snowman could desire, but they concealed the stove. These window panes would not thaw, and he could see nothing of the stove, which he pictured to himself as if it had been a lovely human being. The snow crackled and the wind whistled around him. It was just the kind of frosty weather a snowman might thoroughly enjoy, but he did not enjoy it now. How indeed could he enjoy anything when he was stove sick? That is a terrible disease for a snowman, said the yard dog. I have suffered from it myself, but I got over it. Away! Away! He barked, and then he added, The weather's going to change. And the weather did change. It began to thaw. As the warmth increased, the snowman decreased. He said nothing and made no complaint, which is a sure sign. One morning he broke and sunk down altogether, and behold, where he had stood, something like a broomstick remained sticking up in the ground. It was the pole around which the boys had built him up. Ah, now I understand why he had such a great longing for the stove, said the yard dog. Why, there's the shovel that's used for cleaning out the stove, fastened to the pole. The snowman had a stove scraper in his body. That was what had moved him so. But it's all over now. Away, away. And soon the winter passed. Away, away, barked the hoarse yard dog, but the girls in the house sang. Come from your fragrant home, green thyme, stretch your soft branches, willow tree. The months are bringing the sweet springtime, when the lark in the sky sings joyfully. Come, gentle sun, while the cuckoo sings, and I'll mock his note in my wanderings. And nobody thought any more of the snowman. The end.
Oh, hello. You know, to be perfectly honest, when I was a kid, I didn't like people telling me what to do.
Don't go in the attic.
Don't drink that. Don't play in the street. I mean, don't adults have something better to do than just bark orders at little kids? Sure, you might get bit by a bat or two in the attic, or drink something that might make you explode out of both ends, or get run over occasionally by an ice cream truck that really should have had its music playing if it was going to be going that fast. But that's how kids learn, right? Well, here's a story about a little rabbit that didn't like to be told what to do either, and the strange consequences that happened in his life because of it. The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. And they lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree. Now, my dears, said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there, and he was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor. Now, run along and don't get into mischief. I'm going out. And then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went to the wood to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First he ate some lettuces and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But around the end of a cucumber frame, who should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out some young cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages and the other shoe among the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he might have gotten away altogether if he'd not unfortunately run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with large brass buttons, quite new. Peter gave himself up for lost, and he shed big tears, but his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows, who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself. Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve, which he intended to pop upon the top of Peter, but Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him, and rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Presently, Peter sneezed. "Kerty-choo!" Mr. McGregor was after him in no time and tried to put a foot upon Peter, who jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter, so he went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright, and had not the least idea which way to go. Also, he was very damp with sitting in that can. After a time, he began to wander about, going lippity, lippity, not very fast, and looking all around. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out under the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she couldn't answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled, and presently he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. He went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scritch, scratch, scratch, scritch. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could along a straight walk behind some blackcurrant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter didn't care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big fir tree. Oh, he was so tired he flopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking, and she wondered what he'd done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. I'm sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea, and she gave a dose of it to Peter. 1 tablespoon to be taken at bedtime. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. The end.